Okay, be honest. When's the last time you told yourself 5 more minutes on your phone and closed the app an hour and a half later feeling worse than when you opened it? You're not weak. You're not lacking discipline. What just happened to you was designed, built by actual engineers on purpose to do exactly what it just did to you. Here's the part that's going to mess with you a little. Research has found the average doom scrolling session runs almost 2.5 hours before you even realize it. And in a recent survey, 13% of people admitted they made a real major life decision while they were in the middle of one. So what's actually happening inside your brain during those 2.5 hours? Why can your body physically feel like it wants to put the phone down while your thumb just keeps moving anyway? Turns out there's a name for what's hijacking you. It's not an accident, and it's not new. And once you see how it actually works, you're going to have a hard time looking at your phone the same way again. So here's the thing nobody tells you when you download an app. You're not just downloading software, you're downloading a slot machine. Built with the same psychology that makes casinos design floors with no clocks, no windows, anything that'd remind you how much time has passed. Every time you pull down to refresh, you don't know what you're going to get. Could be a meme that makes you laugh. Could be a headline that wrecks your whole afternoon. Could be absolutely nothing. And that's exactly the point. Psychologists call this a variable reward schedule. Here's the wild part. Your brain doesn't respond strongest to rewards you can predict. It responds strongest to rewards you can't. Researchers looking at reward processing found that unexpected payoffs light up the nucleus accumbens, your brain's reward setter, way harder than payoffs you saw coming. Every single refresh is a tiny gamble, and your brain treats it like one. This isn't an accident. Teams of engineers tune exactly how unpredictable your feed feels, because unpredictability is what keeps a thumb moving. A slot machine doesn't even need you to win. It just needs you to almost win. Just enough to make one more pull feel worth it. But this next part should stop you in your tracks. Slot machines only work on you because of dopamine. And dopamine on its own doesn't explain why the content that hooks you hardest is usually the stuff that scares you. That's a different system entirely, and it's a lot older than any app. So that other system? It's called negativity bias, and it's not a personality flaw. It's wired into every human brain that's ever existed, because for most of human history, it kept people alive. Your brain evolved to notice threats faster, process them deeper, and remember them longer than anything positive. If you're walking through tall grass and you hear a rustle, the smart move is to assume predator first and ask questions later. The humans who paid closer attention to danger survived to have kids. The ones who shrugged it off didn't. So, congratulations, you're descended from the anxious ones. Here's where it gets messy. Your amygdala, the part of your brain built to detect threats, treats a headline about a collapsing economy 3,000 miles away almost the same way it treats a real physical threat. Same stress signals, same "stay alert, something's wrong" message blasting through your nervous system. So, think about your feed. Every outrage post, every disaster clip, every "you need to see this" headline. Your ancient brain reads all of it as a live threat to your survival. And ancient brains don't ignore threats. They fixate on them. Modern feeds are basically an infinite hallway of rustling grass, and you were never built to walk past one without stopping to check every sound. But what should really worry you is this. It isn't just making you anxious in the moment. It's teaching your brain something about anxiety itself, something that turns one bad scrolling session into a habit you can't seem to break. All right, so we've got two things happening at once. Your brain's chasing the dopamine hit of not knowing what's next, and your brain's genuinely scared, treating your feed like a real threat. This is where it gets almost cruel. Those two things team up against you. Picture it. You open the app anxious. Maybe it's stress from work, maybe it's just that itchy, unsettled feeling. So you scroll, because for a few seconds it actually works. New stimulation, small dopamine hit. The anxiety fades a little. But what are you actually looking at? Mostly bad news, because that's what your negativity bias pulls you toward, and that's exactly what the algorithm's serving up. So you scroll to escape the anxiety and land straight in more of it, which makes you feel worse, which makes you scroll more. Round and round it goes, and every lap makes the next one easier to start. And I mean that literally, easier. There's a process called Hebbian learning. Neurons that fire together, wire together. Every time you reach for your phone to soothe that uneasy feeling, you're carving the path a little deeper, strengthening the exact connection that's going to make you reach for it again tomorrow. So it's not always a choice. A lot of the time, your brain's just running a groove it built itself, one refresh at a time. But if it's this automatic for everyone, why does one person put the phone down after 10 minutes and someone else disappear into it for 3 hours? Turns out, that difference has a name, and it explains more than you'd think. That difference is called intolerance of uncertainty. Some people are just wired to find not knowing almost unbearable. Say your boss messages, "We need to talk tomorrow," and logs off. No context. For someone high in intolerance of uncertainty, that one sentence can ruin the whole night, and picking up the phone starts to feel like doing something about it. Except research is clear on this. The more you scroll to calm that feeling, the more anxious you actually become. You're not solving the uncertainty. You're feeding it. It's not just an 11 p.m. in bed thing either. Researchers tracking this during actual work hours found something just as brutal. Doomscrolling predicted lower engagement and more rumination, meaning people weren't just distracted for 5 minutes and back to normal. Their minds kept circling back long after the phone was down. You're sitting in a meeting, nodding along, but part of your brain is still 3 headlines deep in something that happened 400 miles away. On average, that eats up something like 3.5 hours a week per person, and estimates put the cost at around $5,600 per employee every single year. Just gone into the scroll. And remember that 13% from the intro? That's not happening after people calm down. That's happening during, while their nervous system is lit up with borrowed anxiety from a stranger's headline 3 time zones away. But there's still one question we haven't answered. If your brain is this exhausted by the loop, why doesn't it just stop? It doesn't stop because nothing ever tells it to. Here's a question worth sitting with. Why does this only really happen on your phone? You don't doom scroll a newspaper for 3 hours. You read it, you're done, you put it down. So what's different here? The infinite scroll. That's the mechanism. Before infinite scroll existed, every app, every piece of media had a natural stopping point. You'd hit the end of the page, close the book. Your brain got a built-in cue that said, okay, we're done here. Infinite scroll deletes that cue completely. There's no bottom, no you've reached the end, just an endless feed, specifically engineered so your brain never gets the signal to stop. Remember everything we just walked through? The dopamine system chasing the next unpredictable hit, the amygdala treating bad news like a predator, the loop your own brain built one refresh at a time? Infinite scroll is the delivery mechanism that keeps all of it firing, back to back, with nothing to interrupt it. This isn't a side effect of good app design. It's the point. These platforms make money off your attention, and attention is maximized by keeping you in the loop as long as possible. So the algorithm learns what stops you from swiping away, and negative, high-arousal content happens to be some of the most effective material there is for that. You were never scrolling against a neutral piece of technology. You were scrolling against a system built, tested, and refined specifically to outlast your ability to stop. Okay, let's put the whole picture together. A dopamine system obsessed with unpredictability. An amygdala that can't tell a headline from an actual predator. A brain that's literally rewiring itself every time you reach for the phone. If you struggle with uncertainty, the pull is even stronger. And underneath all of it, a feed with no bottom, engineered so none of those systems ever gets a reason to stop. That's 4 things all working at once, all pointing back to the screen. So when someone tells you to just put the phone down or just use more self-control, you're being asked to consciously override 4 separate, ancient, and engineered systems using the same tired, sleep-deprived brain from last night. That's not a fair fight. That was never a fair fight. And here's honestly the most important reframe in this whole video. This isn't a character flaw.
It's not proof you're weak or lazy or broken. It's a biological vulnerability deliberately exploited by people whose entire job is to keep your thumb moving. See it that way instead. Not what's wrong with me, but what's this designed to do to anyone? And the shame drops out. And that matters, because shame never once helped anybody put a phone down. So, if willpower alone was never going to cut it, what actually works? The research on this is surprisingly specific, and a couple of these fixes are going to sound way too simple to actually do anything. They do.
Researchers have actually tested what breaks this cycle, and the why behind each one is what makes it actually work. First, schedule your scrolls. Instead of letting news updates ambush you every quiet moment of your day, pick specific windows to check in. Research consistently shows structured news exposure. News on your terms, at your times, reduces anxiety compared to constant random exposure. You're taking the unpredictable out of the variable reward system and giving your brain back the stopping cue infinite scroll took away. And second, one people underestimate the most, tell someone. Share your goal with a friend, a partner, anybody. Behavior change sticks way better with accountability than it does alone in your own head at midnight. None of these are about willpower. They're about changing the conditions your brain's operating in, because the brain doesn't stand a chance against willpower alone. And honestly, just understanding what's actually happening in your head every time you pick up that phone, that alone changes something. So next time you catch yourself an hour and a half deep into a scroll you don't even remember starting, don't spiral into beating yourself up over it. You're not weak. You're not broken. You're just a human brain running headfirst into a system built by people whose whole job is to keep you there. But now you know how it works, and that's the one thing the loop was never designed to survive. Your brain was built for the savannah. You're just living somewhere else now. If this helped you see your own scrolling a little differently, hit subscribe. There's a lot more of this coming. And maybe, just maybe, put the phone down for tonight.